everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Eryn Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, we are going to be talking about scope of practice. So this is something that really hits home with us, which is one of the reasons why we actually put our business together in the way that it is basically built out, with Dr. Eryn taking care of all of the preventative medicine and internal biomarkers of health and dealing with all that, where I'm dealing with more of the lifestyle modification. So we don't go out of our scope of practice. We don't cross those lines, and we stay in our lanes. But right now, and I'll let Eryn touch on what she's seeing too, but we're seeing all types of crazy shit on social media now, where it's like, take a course and be able to provide clients with peptides and protocols for peptide use, and how to read labs and how to diagnose certain things. And I even saw one with like, it's like now like a what was it? It was neurology, like become certified in neurology. I'm like, what the hell's going on with this? Why don't you touch on that?
Well, I don't know about the neurology stuff, but I have seen the peptides and how to read labs, and I think I only was introduced to this because of your scope of practice. So in other words, a lot of people that aren't physicians are trying to get into this scope of medical practice, essentially. They're trying to practice medicine without a license, is how I would simply put it. They are trying to drum up business by getting or overlapping into the medical profession. And I think they're doing that because it does drive revenue, right? It increases their profit margin. But the problem is that they are not qualified to be reading labs, or the best one I saw was also trying to be a geneticist and diagnose genetic problems when you aren't a medical doctor or even remotely close to a PhD or a geneticist in the first place. So I'm seeing this a lot on social media. I'm not sure how people are getting away with it. How they're not getting sued. I'm not a lawyer, though. I just am blown away, though, at the audacity that people kind of put out there, that they know how to do certain things without having the appropriate training.
Yeah, I think you touched on an important point, too. It's almost like coaches now, because you brought up revenue, coaches have to be the Renaissance men, for lack of a better term, where basically that means like, you have to be good at everything. You have to know how to do everything. And that's diving into dangerous territory, because we're not qualified to do everything. Like as a fitness and health coach, and my specialty is nutrition, my objective with clients is lifestyle modification and behavior change, right? And we do this by offering clarity with certain things. We offer structure with game plans. We offer accountability, and that's basically it. Like, that's what we have to do, and we have to help these people stick to a certain plan that we know work. Now, look, you might be able to know something about what to do as a nutritionist if a client's cholesterol levels are off, and know what to do with their diet plan, but you're not going to say like, hey, you need to take this supplement, or this peptide's going to work to help you do this, or something of that nature. So I think you touched on a really good point where it's like the revenue, because if you look at a prospective client and they see someone who just focuses on nutrition compared to someone who focuses on not only their nutrition but also now their mindset, and then with their psyche, and maybe they diagnose their personality type, and then maybe they are able to run their labs, and then they tell you to do a Dutch test to make sure your hormones, if you can see what I'm doing, quotes, to see if your hormones are in balance, and that's going to be more appealing to the prospective client because they're getting more bang for their buck. And my whole thing with this is like, we need to stay in our lanes, because we've had clients come to us from other functional practitioners that do preach this, and I'm going to say functional because they are the ones that I think not only brought this to light, but perpetuated throughout this entire fitness industry, thinking that it's basically making it okay to do so. But we had people come to us from other functional coaches or practitioners feeling like they were broken, feeling like they had to test everything to make sure that stuff was in certain ranges. And it's like you're missing the forest for the trees here. You're diving so deep into details that won't push the needle of health forward. And it's the more information is not clarity, it's just muddying up the water scenario.
Well, and I think you talked about something that's very interesting. So a lot of people are like, well, more information is better. So like, you see these tests for like 100 biomarkers, or you see a coach that can offer you more than just coaching, right? They can do lab testing or whatever, which is funny because we do that. We do lab testing, but obviously I'm a physician, so I can do some lab testing.
To read it and analyze it.
I think it's funny that some of these other venues are saying now they do lab testing, and it's just basically a coach that might have an undergrad degree. Maybe they just don't even have that. Maybe they have a high school education, and they got some, they took a special course that was like a month long, that was not evidence-based likely. Anyway, I digress. But you think that you're getting more bang for your buck, you're paying for more biomarkers, you're getting more information. One of the things that we learn clinically in medicine is that if you're going to do any kind of diagnostic test, you need to know what to do with the results. Otherwise, the test is useless. So getting more information doesn't mean clarity. It essentially, if you're not going to do anything with that information, it is a waste of your money and time. And a lot of these tests are not clinically validated, and I think that's where the problem lies, is that people are just selling you junk. They're selling you junk information, and then they're trying to take that junk information and tell you that there's something wrong with you, which definitely appeals to a lot of people, especially when you feel like you're at the end of your rope and you've tried everything, right? You want to think that there's something medically wrong with you that can be fixed by somebody else. That is a very psychologically helpful thing to some people. And I think that's where damage is done, right? Because there might not be anything wrong with you. It's just that you need some outside help, but the right kind of help, not somebody telling you have some medical diagnosis that they made up, or some abnormality that they
overactive immune disorder,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, or something ridiculous that there is actually no clinical validation. It hasn't been studied. There's nothing in the medical literature, saying that you have this diagnosis, but somebody has made it up for you, and then they make up a treatment plan for you so that they can sell you something. That is the damaging part, and you are so vulnerable that you want to believe it. You want that fix, and that is the problem.
Yeah, and I also think, like, if you look at like where the goalpost is with coaches and how it just keeps moving with more and more information that's available to us, and now it's like, how can we get more and more clients? We have to keep pushing that goalpost forward. So it's like, all right, first it was lifestyle modification, then it was lifestyle and labs, and then it's like lifestyle modification, labs, and focusing on hormones, and now it's lifestyle, labs, hormones, and genetics. It's like you're going to keep going until, like, next thing we know is like everyone's going to be pushing stem cells on people. Like, what's the next step after this? Like, they're going to have to run out of certain things, and it's going to go back to square one, and it's going to do this like weird little cycle, almost like clothes, right? How they go in and out of style, and fad diets, how they go in and out of style. It's sooner or later, like, everyone's going to realize, like, all that shit was bullshit. It's going to go back to just lifestyle modification. Give that some time, and then all of a sudden, it's going to start to build and move forward from that. But my thing is, when we look at coaches like this, and we sort of take a step back, and we're like, all right, well, what is the reason, or what's the danger when someone steps out of line? Right? So, Eryn, I want you to touch on this a little bit, but what's the danger that can happen if we have a coach who's not qualified, They don't work with people who are qualified. Maybe it's an entire coaching company that isn't technically qualified. What's the dangers that can happen? And let's go like, I don't know, worst case scenario here.
Well, worst case scenario is death, right? And there have been, and I'd have to look these up to be fair, but there have been people dying from this belief system that a coach is going to help them or following what a coach told them to do. I know there's also some legal cases out there that have pointed to that. So the worst case scenario is death. But I think that is less common, right? It's just the worst case scenario is that somebody gives you some advice and maybe it leads to your death. And that's either because they didn't read the labs correctly or they told you to forego medical treatment, for example. That's probably the most common one, is that you forego actual medical treatment to follow some kind of treatment, quote unquote, protocol that maybe somebody came up for you with that is not evidence-based. But I think that the probably within the gray scope where we don't see a lot of people reporting is missing labs. So like if somebody that's not qualified to read your lab work does labs for you, they might miss things. They might miss an actual medical diagnosis that you might have, or the other thing is that they overprescribe. So they might diagnose you with something you actually don't have, where, you know, the biggest example I see out there is thyroid issues. You know, they say that you might have a subclinical thyroid issue, and then they throw treatment at you, and that can do harm over time. But I think the biggest risk is missing a diagnosis, not seeing an abnormality that might be there, where you actually could be helped in the medical system if somebody who is qualified, i.e. a medical doctor, to read your labs. But you won't know that, unfortunately. And you might be of the mindset that this person is really going to help you, and they might. You know, the placebo effect is real sometimes, where people think, and I don't know if placebo effect is the right word for this, but they might buy into, you know, the supplement might really help me, and it might for a little while. But if you actually have a medical problem, that medical problem is going to persist, and it might be hidden for a while. And there have been instances of misdiagnoses because of that, and that's very serious. And again, like, I don't know what the legal ramifications are for that, but I do know that as medical doctors, we are not supposed to cause harm. And I think that this is an egregious topic, because I think a lot of these people out there that aren't qualified to read labs, that are giving out diagnoses, that are you know, quote unquote, telling people they have an issue and then treating that issue without the medical background, I think that is doing harm to people. And that just, I don't know, I'm just morally opposed to that.
Yeah, and I think I meant to touch on this earlier, but you reminded me what you were just talking about. I think it also exploits the distrust that people have in Western medicine. Like, there's so much stuff out there right now that's going against doctors, and it's like, all right, well, look, worst case scenario, you have an emergency, who are you going to call? Like, then all of a sudden, now all your distrust for doctors go away because you're having a heart attack, and now you need one to save your life. It's like doctors take an oath to do no harm, and now there's this narrative being pushed around that doctors are getting money from pharma, and Dr. Eryn could speak to this a little bit more and tell you guys that is far from the truth. But what all of this is doing is it's really just opening up the doors for coaches to start fitting themselves in there, right? Like, oh, you don't trust your doctor, well, trust me because I'm not getting paid by Big Pharma, or whatever the case may be. So, Eryn, I'm not sure if you have anything to say about touching on that, but I just think that coaches, they see this opportunity to fit themselves in a door, and they'll take courses or whatever it is, thinking that it's making up for their lack of knowledge to be able to help someone. and find a way to get more clients. And I just think it's doing more harm than good.
Well, I think right now is a perfect landscape for coaches that think that, right? Because there is a huge distrust in medicine right now and in doctors, unfortunately. And I think the political landscape has opened that up even further with the current administration and RFK, being in charge of HS. And I think it's really unfortunate for medical doctors out there. But for coaches, it's opened up this huge venue of now saying, hey, since you can't trust your doctor, now you can trust us as coaches. And, we can test for more things, we can diagnose you because the medical system has essentially failed you. That is the premise of their argument. And that narrative is being pushed further and further. And I think it's sad for medical doctors in a way, but I don't see a lot of medical doctors trying to quote unquote drum up business like functional providers or like coaches. Coaches have to figure out new ways to make money. And if that's diagnosing conditions or reading labs, I don't need to go out there as a medical doctor and try to say, hey, I can read your labs and pay me money, because patients come to me anyway. We're always going to have a stream of patients that come to us because you'll always need a physician at some point. Unfortunately, if you have an illness, whether it be cancer or if you have some traumatic event, you're essentially going to go to a doctor at some point in your life. Doctors don't need to drum up business like some of these coaches do. So that is the reality. The second thing is that these coaches can do a lot of harm by treating conditions or missing conditions if they're practicing out of their scope. And what kind of legal ramifications that will bring, I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer, but I can't foresee them not doing some kind of harm to some subset of people if they are practicing out of their scope. To me, I see that as medical malpractice.
Yeah, I agree. So to wrap up this podcast, you can hear our daughter in the background. She's getting a little fussy. But to wrap up this podcast, if you are a coach out there and you're not qualified to read labs, which you're most likely not, if you're not qualified to treat certain diseases, which you're not, you got to stay in your lane, right? We need to focus on lifestyle modification and behaviors. And we have to hold people accountability to their game plan and allow that over time to become the new behaviors that we need them to have, and adjust certain things in their life to help make these people healthier, right? And give them a better quality of life. It's not to be the Renaissance men and be able to know how to do every little thing. That's why we refer out. Like the whole point of Balanced Bodies was to bridge the gap between nutrition and medical and nutrition, right? We understand that doctors weren't given the coursework to become experts in nutrition, but they don't have that background. I do, but I don't have the internal health background that doctors have, right? So we bridge that gap here with Balanced Bodies, and we make sure that those who are qualified are doing what they are qualified to do. And that's what we think coaches need to do. We think coaches, if you don't have the ability to have someone in your family or a close friend to work and go into business with, you create this referral network, right? You have this referral network, and you get people you trust, and you get people who are qualified to do the stuff that you need to do to have this multidisciplinary type team helping your clients get the best health that they can get. And that's our message. Our message is stay in your friggin' lane. You don't need to pretend that you know stuff, because honestly, it's going to build more distrust. So besides avoiding legal ramifications, you look better, you look more authentic as a coach, and you stay in your lane. So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.